Welcome back, and today we have more B-Way grosses and a lot of musicals improved heavily since last week, and we have some major casting news, and I'm going to be doing a quick review of Gutenberg the Musical, so let's get into it. First up, we have & Juliet, and that went from 86% to 93%, and 938K to 1,109,651. A strong form to return for & Juliet. That has had a very interesting September. You know, it wasn't doing terrible, but at the same time, it was not doing the numbers that you would expect it to do post-summer, you know, huge, incredible, $1 million numbers. So I am glad that, you know, it's kind of getting back on track. And it was never in danger of closing, but most things like & Juliet don't go past $1 million in their first year, especially after the summer. A Beautiful Noise went from 67% to 74%, and 913K to 965K. And again, I think that somehow, some way, Back to the Future, A Beautiful Noise is managing to like do an insanely good. I think that they put in more afternoon performances or matinee performances, and I think that has helped significantly with their business, and I guess that new model has worked. So no, I don't think A Beautiful Noise will close in Jan. I don't think A Beautiful Noise will close in January as I predicted, but I do think it will not be, you know, running in like 5 years from now. Then we have Back to the Future, and that went from 81% to 92%, and $1 million to 1,299,852. Again, this is a blockbuster musical that is doing phenomenal business, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon, unfortunately. Gutenberg went from 84% to 91%, and 759K to 799K, which is solid numbers for Gutenberg. Now, I did see Gutenberg the Musical. Here is my... Oh, wait, no, hold on. Here is my playbill for Gutenberg the Musical, and I thought it was a solid 7 out of 10. I didn't think it was the most funniest thing I've seen. I think that the material itself is kind of weak, but I think it is worth seeing for Gad and Andrew Reynolds. I thought they were phenomenal in the parts. I thought that Alex Timber's creative mind was at work in this, and I think it's worth the ticket, but I can see why it's not selling out, because while the audience around me was enjoying it, I definitely do think this material is kind of dated, or it feels kind of obvious, you know. It just kind of like, some of the things fell flat. Like, people were hysterically laughing. I was like, okay, it's not laugh out loud funny. It's more of like subtle, nuanced type humor than like laugh out loud humor. But I will say that the interviews that they did for Gutenberg was more funny than the actual musical, and that's not great. But still, I thought it was solid. I really enjoyed it, and I think people that want to go and see this won't be disappointed, but I don't think you're gonna see anything like where you're like, whoa, that was like incredible. I almost feel like I would have preferred it if they just did like their own solo piece that was completely from their minds as opposed to an already existing work. But yeah, the material just kind of let it down, but they bring it back up. And then we got Hadestown, and that went from 83% to 95%, and 540K to 739K. And that's an incredible almost $200,000 increase in ticket sales. And as we know, Jordan Fisher is joining the cast of Hadestown at the end of November. I think it's a pretty nice casting choice myself. However, we do know that he is poor with attendance, and he is, you know, got a pretty weak voice, you know, as he continues to play parts. So, I don't know how long he will be there for, but regardless, I think this means that Hadestown is going to extend into next year. However, it is still doing poor business. It has been doing poor business for all of 2023, and even though it's hit, you know, 739K, with how much money they've lost, we need 8s and 9s, you know, we need millions. And I think that they're trying to stuntcast Persephone, and I think that when you get into stunt casting, it means that these producers understand it is losing steam. But once those stunt casting people go away, who are you going to get next? You know, there's only so many stunt casting you can do, and it is a sign of a musical in desperate need of sales. So I do think it will close in 2024, and I think that this is a clear indicator of that. But I think for now, it's semi-safe, but I don't know. I still think it could close in January, you know, because I know Jordan Fisher was in Hamilton and Dear Evan Hansen, but he didn't boost those ticket sales to, like, this level, you know? So I don't know. I don't see a good future for Hadestown. Hamilton went from 1,776,000 to 1,880,390 and 99% capacity. Here Lies Love did slightly better, going from 64% to 78%, and 521K to 620K. Again, that's terrible. I mean, for a show of Here Lies Love's magnitude, I do think it will close by the beginning of next year. I think that it's done poor business, and I've obviously broken down Here Lies Love considerably, so you can check that out on my previous videos. But yeah, it's not doing well. It's probably gonna close soon. Akimbo also did slightly better, going from 80% to 87%, and 574K to 668K. And again, it's lost so much money during previews that I suspect we will be getting a closing notice for this relatively soon. The Tony Awards did not help out Merrily Akimbo, and again, I'm kind of repeating myself as we go week by week by week. I think at this point, it's like inevitable, like we're just waiting for you to close. Merrily We Roll Along played to 100% capacity and 1,244,396 compared to last week's 1,471,644. Doing gangbuster numbers. You got Moulin Rouge, and that went from 94% to 99%, and 1,121,919 to 1,307,058. A lot of people were kind of concerned about Moulin Rouge and if it was going to make it past the fall numbers, but again, it is a big brand blockbuster musical, so I don't think it's gonna close anytime soon, even though they tend to have softer numbers in the fall. And then we have Shooked, and that went from 77% to 85%, and 658K to 751K. Again, I don't think it's going to last long. I think that, you know, I don't know how much it costs operating like weekly, but I suspect it's like somewhere in the 700, 800K range, and so I think that it is doing just fine. It's passing by, but again, if I'm a producer, we lost so much money in the preview period, and then we did kind of decent in the summer, but you can bet your bottom dollar that tomorrow, aka 2024, this musical is not going to make $1 million. You know, it's going to do bad in February, in January, and it's going to not get to that level that they needed to. So if I were them, I would take the company approach. And if you don't know what that means, you know, company was doing relatively well, but they still closed it way earlier than people thought it should have. But that's because they knew they were going to lose money. And I think that the producers of Shocked are going to lose money. But I think they're extremely stubborn, and they're not going to let the show go until it's performing to like 40% capacity and 300K. So I don't think it's going to go away anytime soon. 6 went from 84% to 92%, and 776K to 984K. Some Like It Hot went from 64% to 74%, and 758K to 888K, and again, that is closing on a relatively good note. And then Sweeney went from 1,504,071 last week to this week's 1,667,808 this week, going from 97% to 94%. And I also meant to say millions for Sweeney and Some Like It Hot, not thousands. So yeah, those are the grosses for this week. Overall, a pretty solid week in general. A lot of things improved. However, I still think that Merrily Akimbo, Hadestown, Here Lies Love, and what's the other one? And Shocked are kind of like the next 4 things to go, and by the end of this month, I predict that 2 of those musicals will have announced a closing. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.